Good day. Most welcome, Raghavan. It's great to have you on this Leaders Talk show, and I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on different aspects of leadership, high performance, and finance. So, warm welcome to you once again.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you for having me. It's always been a pleasure to have a conversation with you. So whatever I can do, I will definitely try to do my best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I know you have vast years of experience, and it's no mean feat to become the president of the Lucas TVS Group. So let me get started by asking you, how did you manage to get high on your career? It'll be nice if you can take us through a bit of your journey so that viewers are also familiar with you.
Sure. Currently, I head the Lucas Indian Service, which is a fully owned subsidiary of Lucas TVS, which is an aftermarket solutions provider. And how did I reach here? The journey was, of course, long. And I'm a small town boy and born, brought up in Tirunelveli in southern part of India. And to give some tidbits of information, I studied in Tamil medium until the class 12.
Wow.
Okay. And as you would know, that part of the country has two distinct seasons, a very hot season, and when it rains, it is not hot. Okay, so, uh, and my dad had built a house in the suburbs. The suburbs were not a concept which was catching up around India at that point in time. So it was a little away from the main town. And we had I shall say, had the opportunity to walk up to school a few kilometers initially until the bus services started. And then we started walking a kilometer less to catch a bus and then travel by bus for a kilometer and go to school. And then bicycle our way. And why I'm saying all this is it was a colony. My father was working in Life Insurance Corporation of India, and it was known as LIC Colony. He and his colleagues, they had formed a housing society, and then they had taken loans from the corporation, and they had built houses. And we had a beautiful independent house with a huge land around the house. So I grew up doing a whole lot of gardening, not the terrace gardening type. It is a real gardening. I mean, it was probably a two grounds plot, and less than a ground was the house, and rest of it was the open area. So we could cultivate all the vegetables, greens, and the flowers required for daily worship and all that. So that was the kind of environment in which I had grown up. So three
So I
things which
must say that it's so inspiring to note that somebody who's grown up in the small town is now reached the rungs of the corporate ladder. So congratulations, that's awesome.
thank you. I think there are more inspiring stories than this. At least I would say I was privileged and I could go to a school without difficulty, and there was a family which put education ahead of everything else. So I was fortunate enough to be in that kind of a situation. So why I'm saying this is in this background, four things or five things came very important. One is you always have to be self-reliant. So one of the most important aspects of self-reliance is you need to maintain your health in all aspects. So that is your physical health, your mental health, emotional health, and your spiritual health, and the very high levels of integrity. Because Dad used to go to office early in the morning and come back very late, and you're on your own, whether and you are responsible for your younger sibling, and also there were other kids with whom we were playing around and all that. And where we were growing up, initially for about 8 months, we did not have electricity, so we had to use lanterns and things like that. So we had a lot of snakes We had a whole lot of scorpions and other insects. So you got to be extremely, extremely careful. The integrity is important because you need to do what you say and you need to say what you do or what you did. For the safety of all the children who were associated with me. And also during the rainy season, there used to be a small rivulet kind of a thing which used to flow in front of the house. You have to cross it to go to the school, to continue your walking. And part of that will be really slushy and literally some 7, 8 kids have to hold hands to navigate through that. So it was like a teamwork, collaboration. Everything was kind of, without knowing it, we were kind of learning it. So,
Amazing.
and the other important thing is, as you grow up in such an environment, you also naturally tend to be grateful to what you have and grateful for the company of others. And therefore, the gratitude was something which was extremely important and which was ingrained. And we were all focused on the work on hand. While at school, I used to try finishing as much homework as possible within the school time itself, because otherwise coming back home initially, you didn't have electricity. So you had to struggle. So finish it and whatever left off during the twilight hours, so that you are free to do whatever else you can do later. So then a bit of gardening until it was very dark. And therefore, the work ethics were also very high. So the hard work was not something very difficult to kind of practice. So it was kind of ingrained. So, and as much humble, humane, and heartful as possible. So you always had on the way to school or the way back from school somebody who needs help. So you need to uh, lend a helping hand. So this was kind of a thing. So I grew up, came to Chennai for my college education to study engineering in College of Engineering, Guindy. City life makes you curious, makes you try out a few things. So what I've really tried out is, in those days, if you remember, the Pallavan Transport used to issue the student passes and the tokens. I used to randomly pick and choose a bus and then go land up in a completely unknown area, walk around to get it familiar. So
Wow.
by that token, I would say probably I know most of Madras thanks to Pallavan Transport and the coupon system they had. And that kind of set a mindset of curiosity and exploration in nature. And then 4 years, this is where I would say the performance was important. My dad was very clear that whatever I did, end of the day, there shouldn't be no loose ends in the education. So his rule was very simple. He wouldn't ask unnecessary questions so that I don't have to tell a lie. But he would expect me to tell the truth as much as I can. So from that point of view, the performance was extremely important. So it is about, okay, the people around you think that you have a potential, and then how do you translate it into results? Because having studied in Tamil medium, all your physics, chemistry, biology, and the whole thing, and coming to college, it is not an easy feat to start understanding in English. But English was also always my strong suit. Even in my higher secondary examination, I remember having stood first in the district, having scored some 92% or whatever in those days. But studying the subjects in English it required a little extra effort. But luckily, during the 11th and 12th, since I was preparing for IIT then, though I didn't qualify, but that had helped me in understanding the terms. The fundas were very clear because I studied in my mother tongue. So even today I can relate to most of the physics, most of the mathematics, which is my strong subject. And later I had to kind of translate it in English for writing it and doing stuff. So that was not really very difficult.
Right.
So
Amazing. In fact, your childhood story, it looks like the leadership qualities were already imbibed in you in the young days, like whatever you said, I was able to relate each of them to how a leader should be behaving. So that's like awesome.
I joined Bamallari and Company from campus through campus recruitment, and I joined as an executive trainee. And they had a 1 year of training program. And in those days, I mean, I learned one important thing about decision making while making that decision, because through campus interview, I had 3 offers.
Wow.
One was from Ashok Leyland, and one was from Vidya India in Bangalore, and one was from Bamallari. And since the Bamallari letterhead read as number 21 Netaji Subhash Road, Calcutta, okay, which was the farthest from Chennai. So that's how I made that decision.
What roles all of these things play? Great.
So, and I go there, join, but then they say that you are posted in Chennai. So,
how do you feel that?
Well, so that's when you learn the importance of having made a decision. You live with the consequence of that decision as well, and to make the best out of it. Yeah, I came back to Chennai. I started working in the project engineering department, and there were a couple of projects which were happening for Bamallari, internal projects. So they're building a few plants, a chemical plant and a grease plant and a barrel manufacturing plant, all that. So there was a very large team of 2 guys. I still remember my senior at the site was one Mr. K.C. Rajagopal, civil engineer, and I was the mechanical engineer. And the very first day, he dumped a bunch of drawings on my lap and said that this is what we are going to execute. And those drawings look completely different from the engineering drawing that we had done in college. So I told him that I'm fresh out of college. I really don't understand the damn thing. And he also smiled and said, he's a Kerala, he smilingly said, even I don't understand any of that because they're all mechanical engineering drawing. I am a civil engineer. So let's explore this and let's learn. Let's teach each other.
Right.
So what I used to do is I used to take his help. So the learning was happening. It was a very steep learning curve. And why I am narrating this is Mr. V.N. Sharma, V. Narayana Sharma, who was then the, I think he was senior manager projects at Chennai office. Eventually, he retired as, I think, executive director of Bamallari. An XLRA alumni, and a very fine person. He had the faith that this guy can do something, and then I was deputed to site straight away, okay, without even asking any question. And that gave me the confidence that anything can be learned, anything can be done if we apply our mind. And Bamallari experience was really good. The first 7 years of my career, where I spent time moving from one function, one role to another. And another important decision making which happened was from project. Mr. Sharma decided that since I was instrumental in building a particular plant, he was very confident that I would have made a lot of mistakes. So he made me do the production within that plant. So I was posted as a production engineer in the same plant. So I had to live with all the mistakes I made. So and production and maintenance engineer. And while doing that, there was another gentleman by name Mr. Kannan. Now, he once approached and then he said that during lunchtime, I said, would you like to be in sales? I said, why not? Okay, so then he said, okay, so I'll talk to your boss. And then the next week, I was in sales, and then this was institutional sales, B2B. Okay, and we were dealing with the oil giants at that time. So the Indian Oils, Bharat Petroleum, and Hindustan Petroleum. the kinds. And Kannan just took me around, introduced me, and that's it. And after that, he let me loose. Okay, so there again, he had reposed a lot of faith and trust. So that pushed me to learn and also go back to him whenever I was in doubt. And once things started picking up, the B2B portfolio expanded, and then I was asked to handle Indian Railways, the road transport corporations, and then the big coal companies. And then another lunchtime conversation was, would you be interested if I shifted you to Hyderabad?
Wow,
With a
interesting
branch?
twists and turns.
Would you like to accept a transfer? I said, fine. And I didn't even bat an eyelid. I said, fine. Okay. So he then asked me, do you know Hindi? I said, I'll learn. Okay. And do you know Telugu? I said, I don't know, but I'll learn. Dekha jayega. So we will see what can be done. So he said, okay, fine. So if you can, you can. So then I asked him, so when do I start? He said, reach there tomorrow morning.
Wow, that's so great. Yeah.
So figuring out which trains go to Hyderabad and where the office is and all that occupied the rest of the afternoon. Luckily, I got a ticket in Charminar, and so Charminar Express, and went to Hyderabad, and then rest is history. So then India was kind of opening up, and P.V. Narasimha Rao was Prime Minister, and Manmohan Singh was the Finance Minister. And I was listening to a speech by N.J. Yashasvi. Okay, then the Chartered Financial Analyst course was just coming up in Hyderabad, and they had a small office in Banjara Hills. And the pre-budget speech, N.J. Yashasvi normally used to give the pre-budget speech about the budget, and then as soon as the economic survey of India is released, so he used to give a pre-budget or post-budget speech. I don't remember which one, but he talked about the winds of change, and then the privatization, and then how private sector was going to thrive, etc. So then there was another.
One moment, I'm curious to know, at that point in time, you were somebody from the science background. So how did you relate to the budget speech? How was it for you at that time?
Since I did not know anything about macro or microeconomics, and since I did not know the difference between the GNP and GDP, I didn't have any technical questions to ask, and I was only awed by the speaker. So it was extremely easy to get influenced at that point in time. So then a decision was made. So I said, I'm going to join the private sector. Okay, so I mean, my dad was aghast. He said, you're working in a government of India enterprise, and you've already put in 7 years. Soon you will be eligible for a car loan, a house building loan, and this and that. And why do you want to shift? I said, my career, my choice. So I would. So that's how I moved into the private sector. And then there was no looking back. What was interesting was whatever I learned as I was growing up, I could apply that in Mamillari. So you always have to focus on how healthy are you in order to execute your work without a day of sickness. And however difficult the day was, as long as you have a strong mind, so you are able to navigate through the day, and you have whatever the challenges were, you are able to face them.
Right.
And most importantly, people are willing to try out many different things with you if they saw you as dependable.
Absolutely.
So that
trust factor.
Yes. Yeah, that integrity is extremely important. And then you're grateful to opportunities that came your way, and people who were responsible for that, and people who worked with us. Shop floor was a real good experience. Even today, the first 30 guys I recruited, I can even reload their names.
Wow.
Probably the dates might have been forgotten, but almost in the same order they joined the company.
Super.
Okay, and
Right.
many of these guys came from agricultural background, and they did not even have an industrial exposure. And this was sheet metal industry making steel drums, and the machineries, though they had all the safety precautions and it was easy to get hurt, and accidents did happen, and sharp edges, thin sheets, and it could be a deadly accident. So it was extremely important to train the people. And to train the people, what is more important is to understand what makes them trainable, because you need to talk to them in their language to make them understand. End of the day, as a production in charge, you are responsible for an accident-free shift
Absolutely.
and the highest productivity possible. But that is not going to happen if you're going to have accidents. So
Yes,
you
safety.
have what you have. Yeah, you have what you have. So how do you make the best out of what you have? So the first two guys who were the unskilled category of workers who came and joined, and they didn't even have a pair of trousers to wear and come to work. They came in dhoti.
Oh.
Okay, so the factory was at Manali, and then Manali was not a very developed area at that point in time. I couldn't find a place where they sold a ready-made trouser at that point in time. So took a company jeep, came all the way up to Paris Corner to find a place to buy a pair of trousers for each of these guys so that they can come into the shop floor. Otherwise, so
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, great. What an amazing journey you've taken us through. It sounds so inspiring. And it looks like, very early on in your career, so many of these, great traits have been imbibed. And I'm sure, that's taken you long and you've been imbibing those as well these days.
absolutely. So, and after that, it's one company to another, but these things have remained constant. So you ensure that you are safe, you are healthy, and people who are working for you are safe and healthy in all respects. So the physical, mental, emotional, all health is as much as possible taken care of, and the integrity that unless you show that, and people will not reciprocate to you. And the workplace is extremely important, because that's where we do the value addition to the most important stakeholder, which is the customer. So therefore, how do you approach work? How do you execute things at work? That becomes extremely important. And then, of course, you are grateful and definitely humane, humble, and continue to wear your heart on the sleeve rather than be very reckless and ruthless about dealing with people.
True. Amazing, amazing. Thank you for sharing that once again. So, what I would like to ask you next is, what does high performance mean to you as a leader?
High performance means whatever I've explained to you right now. In fact, I repeated 3 times so far. The high performance stands for the H. The first H stands for how do you take care of your health? Okay, as a leader. Okay, the health starts with the self-awareness, what I can do, what I cannot do. Because trying to do something that you cannot without equipping yourself creates a stress. The stressed leader creates stress in the team. So how do you equip yourself? How do you become capable, and therefore you are less stressed in dealing with your team? So that becomes very, very important. That is the first H of the high. And the I stands for the integrity. The leader leads by integrity, not by anything else. If people have to listen to me, people should believe that what I say is what is possible, and I have done it, and I am capable of doing it. I'm willing to do it.
Right.
And the third, the G is about the workplace, the Gemba, and being grateful about why you are there, because the company might have employed you, but the company is in existence basically because the customer wants that product or service, and that transformation from raw material to whatever is the finished product or service happens at the workplace.
Right.
Gemba actually means the place where the actual work that adds value to the customer happens. So it has to be given its due importance in terms of what do you do there, how do you do things there, and with whom you do that, and how do you treat them, and then in that process, how everybody gets involved in doing it. That involvement will come from the last stage, which is being humble and humane. Nobody wants to.
I so like the fact that you made it as an acronym, like how I normally do. So that's like health, integrity, Gemba, and humbleness. Wow.
So that makes the leader
Hmm.
transform the potential to results. That is performance. So that for me is high performance. So the
Awesome. Yes, yes. Okay, great. So when I say leadership, what or who comes to your mind?
what comes to my mind is somebody who minds her own business as she works along, not worried about glamour, not worried about name, not worried about news hitting the front page. And there is a work to be done. And actually, leader is somebody who is not visible. A leader is somebody who makes the organization visible and uh, makes the people who work for her visible.
Wow. Hmm. Hmm. So leading
So
from behind.
both. See, when there is a problem, you go to the front because the team may or may not know all the answers, or they may not have the wherewithal to understand
Correct.
what's really happening. So the leader goes to the front and then understands the problem, grasps it, and the most important decision at that point in time made is the leader actually decides which of the stakeholder has to be managed more than the others, depending on the crisis that the team cannot do.
Correct.
And she acts as a wall between that stakeholder and the rest of the team. While the rest of the team is working on restoring normalcy,
Hmm.
she manages the normal with the highest upset stakeholder. So that is the job of leading from the front.
Hmm.
At times, while doing that, the leader might lose the job also.
Hmm.
Okay, that is also possible. That is the highest risk you carry. That's okay. But end of the day, if that revives the situation, and then even if the people who are responsible for the leader's exit will realize later that they made a mistake. But meanwhile, the leader would have thrived in any other environment. Okay, so that's pretty much a reality.
Yes.
And leading from behind is when there is a relative peacetime, when things are going as usual. The leader need not be at the front. And that's when the leader puts people at the front
Hmm.
and makes them learn to lead.
Right.
So the next crisis, the leader is not alone at the front. The leader is surrounded by a few who have picked up that leadership trait. So that makes more leaders.
Yes. Like you said, the stakeholder management really resonates a lot with me as well. And you're absolutely right there to state how, as a leader, you need to take charge and, ensure you're able to manage all the stakeholders. And yes, there is a risk involved as well. And I also love the fact that you said, leading from behind and putting people in front when it's required. So I think that is an amazing, whatever you've shared with us. So that leads me to ask you, what sort of team member would you look for as a leader? Who would make an ideal team member? Because it's so important to work together in a team as well. So, what are your thoughts there?
Uh, three important things. One is about the most important thing in the workplace is the front door. Your front door should not allow anybody that doesn't fit into the desired culture of the workplace. So that is the gatekeeper's job is very important as a leader. So having said that, the gatekeeper has to be the example of what is the desired culture that you want to be displayed at work. So a team member should be capable of becoming a leader,
Hmm.
preferably if somebody who can succeed the leader himself or herself in due course of time, which requires a fair amount of maturity and guts, because if the person is so successful, he can succeed you in shorter period of time than you expect, and therefore your job is at risk. So that's possible, but that's okay. But if you are capable of creating such a leader, you always find another job which is far more rewarding than the one you left behind. So, and that is the future leader, the capability to be a leader, the person who has the potential, has the wherewithal to convert that potential to results, and who displays integrity, and the person who has the respect for the customer and the workplace. These are very, very important.
Lovely. So what you said, potential to results, that resonates a lot with me as a coach. So as a leader, how do you translate the potential to results?
First and foremost is people are different. Each person indeed is unique, and we cannot stereotype them and put them in some kind of a straitjacket. Right. So this leader herself is unique. So what is important is to understand what is my style, and with my style, what can I do with the style of people that I am dealing with. And there will be a situation where there is a very high potential individual. In order to convert the potential into results, your ability to deal with that person is not sufficient or not possible. So you require an external intervention like a coach or another team member. So that awareness is very, very important. And second is testing. Okay, you need to give the stretch goals and what is a seemingly impossible task. And these need to be given at the same time, kind of a safety net provided to that individual, so that when the failure happens, if at all it happens, the feedback given is for the benefit of the individual to grow up rather than to punish.
Yes, true. That comfort level is very, very essential. You rightly said so. Yes.
That's
so
right.
You also said about the leadership style. So that makes me want to ask you, what is your leadership style?
I do both leading from the front and the back. So, as I said, and crises do happen. They come as often as they need to. And COVID was one such thing. And where you have to get to the front and then lead. And having led a large manufacturing organization during that time, being around and visibly showing them it is possible. And the vaccine was not even talked about at that point in time. We were still wearing masks and even gloves and face shields, and we were washing our hands for probably last 1 year. We might have washed our hands more than the entire lifetime before that. So,
correct, yeah.
So when with all those kind of precautions happening, it was very important to show up and show support and lead from the front, and also use the downtime to build the capability. So use all the technology, the Zoom, the Teams, and then put in whatever resources you can put in, and help people to tide over the fear. Is the company surviving? Is my job there? So to something like, okay, I'm learning something new. Should something happen to me, I still am building some capability in myself. So I'm sure I will be able to build things on. So that kind of a thing. Then as things become normal, where you need to take a back seat and let others experiment with their ideas and their knowledge and their newly acquired skills, support them from behind to succeed. So it's a combination of both.
Right. Super. So what are some of the essential traits of a leader to build a high performance team?
Choose the members right. Team member has to be a person who doesn't play for himself or herself, play for winning for the team. So when the chips are down, this person is able to, gather that extra energy from within, not to do something for himself or herself, but to support the next person in the team so that the entire team benefits. And this has to be, supported, bolstered, and kept on improving by the constant display of a similar behavior by the leader, and encouraging and supporting the team as much as a leader can, and ensuring that the team is involved. The engagement and involvement levels are always very high, whether it is in a high or a low. So it is the engagement is always very high.
So how do you ensure the engagement aspect?
If I'm listened to, if the other party is listening to me with the intent to understand my what I'm saying, then I'm more interested in telling what I need to say. And especially in a business, in a team environment, people are talking about something that can be done better at work. As a leader, if I'm able to listen and if the idea is really good, I'm able to put it into action and then show the result and give the credit to the person who gave the idea.
Yes, true. Leadership, I think it's a great thing to have very good listening skills. You nailed it bang on there, and also executing it and giving the credit to the right person of the team. I think that's beautiful. Yes, thanks for that. So, what sort of financial impact will the organization have when there is a high performance culture within the organization?
Two things happen. I mean, high performance culture does not necessarily mean that if you are at a current EBITDA level of 8%, in one financial year, it goes to 16%. It definitely means that the 8 will become eventually 10, 12, 14, 16, etc. as the environment allows it to happen.
Correct.
But there is a wherewithal which is built within the team. So the high performance is a culture. It is not just a behavioral aspect. It is a culture, how people work together, how decisions are made, and how do we execute decisions, how do we disagree, how do we engage, how do we face adversity together, and how do we celebrate together. So
yes, together
that is
a very crucial aspect. Yes,
that's right.
yeah.
So that it's not just about some short-term financial metrics, but definitely if this is done well, the financial metrics, which is a byproduct, will show up much stronger than otherwise.
Yes, yes. Lovely. Yeah, you said it so right. And definitely, I think, especially during challenges, when challenges are faced, when teams are sticking together and able to exhibit high performance at that time, I think that makes a whole lot of financial, difference to the organization. Yes. So I think that's the core of high performance. Yes. Lovely. And last, before, we leave, I know you have read my book, Get High. So I would like to hear your thoughts and your views on Get High.
First of all, I must say this is not a book, this is a program. Okay, this is a unique experiment because coaching is so important, and getting the right coach is very, very important. A wrong coach can lead you the wrong path and completely ruin your performance. Here is a coach which is available on your shelf all day long, all year round. And this is a very kind of a unique experiment because there are a whole lot of models which are proposed there, and there is a whole lot of experimentation that can be done by individuals on themselves. And it also allows customization. Okay, so it's not one cast in stone kind of a theory. It is something like a suggestion, and if something else works for you along with that, that also can be tried. So I think from that point of view, this is a program and this is unique. And this it's not about a book that you read from end to end in one go. And you can actually randomly pick any chapter that you require help in at any given point in time, and then you can go through that and then build on that. So that's kind of a modular. And if you really look at it, it also helps people in different stages of their career. See, the career is built forward, okay, and understood backwards. Okay, then I can talk about my career only in hindsight.
Yes.
30, when I started about 34 years back, okay, and I wouldn't have imagined that I would have reached where I am, and I would have gone through so many industries and companies.
Correct.
Okay, so career is built forward, and we make mistakes, we learn, we avoid those mistakes in future, make new mistakes, learn, avoid new mistakes, and we continue. And whether you are a beginner, whether you are in the mid-career, or you are in the end of career, or you want to become a coach, this book offers a whole lot of tools and a whole lot of thinking framework to the individual to work on. So from that point of view, I think it's a fantastic work, and I must congratulate you for putting it together.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Raghavan. That was very lovely words of appreciation. I'm delighted to hear that from you. And it was great having you on the show. And I loved your wisdom nuggets that you've shared. And I'm sure the viewers will be richly benefited hearing to you. So thanks a lot for taking your time out and being part of the show. And I hope to catch up with you sometime soon in another show at a later date. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sangeeta. Pleasure was mine. Thank you.
Thank you.